Commencing with the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most beneficent. Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Saushir Siddiqui and today I am going to deliver a brief presentation on the topic of Introduction to Spectroscopy. I am from the Department of BS Biochemistry and my roll number is 003. My resource person is Sir Hamad Majid. So let's begin with the definition. Spectroscopy is the branch of science concerned with the investigation and measurement of spectra produced when matter interacts with or emits electromagnetic radiation. While we can define a spectrum as the characteristic wavelength of electromagnetic radiation, in simple words, electromagnetic radiation is just simply electric and magnetic field which propagates perpendicularly to each other. These radiation when emitted or absorbed by an object or substance or atom or molecule, we get a spectrum. While example of spectrum include the rainbow, the emission of colors from the sun and the infrared absorption wavelength from a molecule. Here you can see the spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. These ranges from radio to gamma rays and their frequency and energy are also given. Next, spectroscopy is used in physical and analytical chemistry for the identification of substances through the spectrum emitted from or absorbed by them. Spectroscopy is also heavily used in astronomy and remote sensing. Remote sensing means to detect the properties, to measure the properties, to know the properties without physically contacting any object. Most large telescopes have spectrometers, which are used either to measure the chemical composition and physical properties of astronomical objects or to measure their velocities from the Doppler shift of their spectral lines. A Doppler shift or Doppler effect takes place when a source moves away or towards any observer. When a source moves towards the observer, there is a change in its frequency and wavelength. And when the source moves toward the observer, the wavelength decreases and frequency increases, and vice versa. Next, we have different type of spectroscopy including absorption spectroscopy, emission spectroscopy, or scattering spectroscopy. The type of spectroscopy depends on the physical quantity measured. Normally, the quantity that is measured is intensity, either of energy absorbed or produced. Next, we have absorption spectroscopy. It uses the range of electromagnetic spectra which a substance absorbs. This includes atomic absorption spectroscopy and various molecular techniques such as infrared spectroscopy in the infrared region and nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy in the radio region. Second type is emission spectroscopy. As the name suggests, it uses the range of electromagnetic spectra which a substance radiates, or as I call it as, which a substance emits. The substance first must absorb energy. This energy can be generated from a variety of sources which determines the name of the subsequent emission like luminescence. Molecular luminescence techniques include spectrophlorometry. Second type, next type is scattering spectroscopy. It measures the amount of light that a substance scatters at certain wavelengths, incident angle, and polarization angles. The scattering process is much faster than the absorption or emission process. One of the most useful application of light scattering spectroscopy is Raman spectroscopy, which we discuss briefly in coming slides. Most common type of spectroscopy includes X-ray spectroscopy and crystallography, flame spectroscopy, which have further types like atomic emission, atomic absorption, atomic fluorescence spectroscopy, plasma emission spectroscopy, spark or arc emission, UV visible spectroscopy, infrared, Raman, NMR, photothermal, thermal infrared, and mass spectrometry. These are different type of spectroscopic techniques. We will discuss them one by one in upcoming slides. Starting with fluorescence spectroscopy. Fluorescence spectroscopy uses higher energy photons to excite a sample, which the sample will then emit lower energy photons. This technique has become popular for its biochemical and medical application. Here you can see the simplified fluorescence spectroscopy process. First we have excitation source, then we have filter or monochromator, then the sample is placed. After that the radiation pass through the second filter or monochromator and then are detected in the detector. Next is X-ray spectroscopy. X-ray, you all are well aware of the electromagnetic radiation of energies from 24 electron volt to 24 kilo electron volt. These are highly penetrating radiation and have many applications in the field of medical sciences. While in X-ray spectroscopy, X-rays of sufficient frequencies interact with the material and excite the atoms contained. Due to this excitation, Auger effect is produced and some excitation radiation are absorbed or evolved. X-ray absorption and emission spectroscopy is used in chemistry and material sciences to determine elemental composition and chemical bonding. Very good and versatile technique, but a little complex. It needs some scattering light detectors along with the X-ray source. Overall, X-ray diffraction technique is one that is used most widely for bond length and angle measurement. Next is flame spectroscopy. As the name suggests, liquid solution samples are aspirated into a burner or nebulizer combination, dissolvated, atomized, and sometimes excited to a higher energy electronic state. The use of a flame during analysis requires fuel and oxidant, typically in the form of gases. Common fuel gases used are acetylene or hydrogen. Common oxidant gases used are oxygen, air, or nitrous oxide. These methods are often capable of analyzing metallic elements in the parts per million, parts per billion, or possibly lower concentration ranges. Light detectors are also needed to detect light with the analysis information coming from the flame. Flame spectroscopy has three types, which are atomic absorption, atomic emission, and atomic fluorescence spectroscopy. Next is spark or arc emission spectroscopy. It is used for the analysis of metallic elements in solid samples. For non-conductive materials, a sample is grounded with graphite powder to make it conductive. While in traditional arc spectroscopy, the method was purely qualitative, but now, due to advanced technologies, the spark sources with controlled discharge under an argon atmosphere allow that this method can be considered eminently quantitative, and it is widely used in the laboratories of foundries and steel mills. Next, we have UV visible spectroscopy. It basically involves the spectroscopy of photon and spectrophotometry. It uses light in the visible and adjacent near ultraviolet and near infrared ranges. UV visible spectroscopy is routinely used in the quantitative determination of solutions of transition metal ions and highly conjugated organic compounds. Conjugation means alternate single and multiple bonds in a compound. For the qualitative measurements, Beard-Lambert law is followed. The Beard-Lambert law is useful for characterizing many compounds, but does not hold as a universal relationship for the concentration and absorption of all the substances. Next is IR or infrared spectroscopy. It is a subset of spectroscopy that deals with the infrared region of the electromagnetic spectrum. It covers a range of techniques, the most common being a form of absorption spectroscopy. As with all the spectroscopic techniques, it can be used to identify compounds or investigate sample composition. Infrared spectroscopy offers the possibility to measure different types of inner atomic bond vibrations at different frequencies. Especially in organic chemistry, the analysis of infrared absorption spectra shows that what type of bonds are present in the sample. Infrared spectroscopy exploits the fact that molecules have specific frequencies at which they rotate or vibrate corresponding to discrete energy level. Next is Raman spectroscopy. It is a type of scattered spectroscopy. It relies on inelastic scattering or Raman scattering of monochromatic light, usually from a laser in the visible, near infrared, or near ultraviolet range. Spontaneous Raman scattering is typically very weak, and as a result, the main difficulty of Raman spectroscopy is separating the weak, inelastically scattered light from the intense, Rayleigh scattered laser light. Next, we have nuclear magnetic resonance or NMR. This spectroscopy analyzes the magnetic properties of certain atomic nuclei to determine different electronic local environments of hydrogen, carbon, or other atoms in an organic compound. This is used to help determine the structure of the compound. Next, we have photothermal spectroscopy. It is a group of high sensitivity spectroscopy techniques used to measure optical absorption and thermal characteristics of a sample. The basis of photothermal spectroscopy is the change in thermal state of the sample resulting from the absorption of radiation. Light absorbed, not lost by the emission, results in the heating. This heat raises the temperature, thereby influencing the sample thermodynamic properties. Measurement of the temperature, pressure, or density changes that occur due to optical absorption are ultimately the basis for the photothermal spectroscopic measurement. Next, we have thermal infrared spectroscopy. TIR spectroscopy is the subset of infrared spectroscopy that deals with the radiation emitted in the infrared region of the electromagnetic spectrum. The emitted infrared radiation, though similar to blackbody radiation, is different in that the radiation is banded at characteristic vibration in the material. The method measures the thermal infrared radiation emitted as opposed to being transmitted or reflected from a volume or surface. Well, this method is commonly used to identify the composition of surface by analyzing its spectrum and comparing it to previously measured material. It is particularly suited to airborne and spaceborne application. Well, that's all from my side. Thank you for your time. Allah Hafiz, take care.